and she's a dedicated community organizer, as well as the founder of Winnie O Media. So please welcome to the stage, Winnie Okello.
Good evening, everybody. How are we doing today?
Very well.
Oh, I love that. As stated, my name is Winnie Okello. Most people call me Winnie O, because that's just, I keep it friendly out here. I think it's important that we have spaces such as this where we do talk about the importance of not just allowing, but encouraging folks to use their voices through their vote, right? One of the things we often hear when we do this work is this idea of the democratic duty and access that people should have or do have. Not everybody has that, right? When you go back to I'm a big words person, right? So democracy, etymology, right?
Yes.
Write that down.
Yes.
Right? Yeah, right. Greek rooted word, right? Demos meaning people and kratos meaning what? Power, right? Understanding that it is the people's power, power of the people, which one of the things I like to say, power to the people, by the people, for the people, right? And it's very important when we're talking about like who the people are, we have to be very intentional about how we define those things, because we understand definitions matter. One of the things Dr. Campbell and I like to say, words matter, language matters, context matters. When we do this work, it's very important that we are very mindful of that moving forward. And so, and that understanding, the reality is when we look at the current state of voting rights, right? We understand that far too often, especially quite recently, the people's vote, the people's decision was being challenged by frivolous entities. And it is important that when we get into spaces such as this, we need to be very intentional and we need to be very direct in calling out when inequity and injustice is enacted upon the people who we are voting into spaces that they're supposed to be speaking up for us. And it's important to also understand when we talk about democracy and the power of the people and the people's voices and the people's votes, who stays silent when the people's decisions are being challenged through systemic and structural barriers that exist, right? So I know I'm throwing a lot at folks. If you haven't been all up in the Harrisburg and City Council shenanigans, it is a lot, and I think it's important that we give voice whenever possible to call out injustices wherever they occur, especially when they're being used to stifle people's right to vote. And so I know for myself, whether it is talking about the annual budget or the strategic plan for the city or the environmental policies, because that's the space I oftentimes advocate in, both personally, professionally, purpose and passion. That's what I do. I'm really passionate about serving my community, serving the people beyond just Harrisburg, because environmental issues are not just restricted to Harrisburg. They are a state issue, they're a national issue, there are global issues. They're the global issues, as I like to call them, globally local, where it's global issues, local approaches, local impact. Because what we do here in Harrisburg affects people who may be coming from various corners of this globe. And so I think it's important that we're mindful of that lens in doing this effort. And so even as I work, as mentioned, through my work with HARP, which is the Harassment and Assault Reporting Platform, one of the spaces that I've found myself advocating a lot in is in the area of the decriminalizing folks who have been incarcerated and their rights to vote and to participate in the democratic process, understanding that those voices are oftentimes systematically and strategically just squelched. It's like, we're okay listening to you, but in this space. And so what does that look like when we're looking to invite people to be intentional participants in restoring justice, true justice, not just legality, but true justice in the work that we do as community advocates, as Commonwealth and public servants. I think it's important that in all that we do, we truly are being inclusive of those marginalized and minoritized voices in the community among us, because it's one thing to say, yeah, go ahead, pay your penance, but when you come up, you still can't do the things that we told you you're allowed to do. I think we need to get real about that. So I will definitely wrap this up in saying also that when we talk about inviting folks to the proverbial decision-making tables, and I'll bring this into the EJ work on the, because I've been talking about environmental justice for way too many years. We see recently, even with a lot of the funding that's coming down from the federal level, right? This is not just about a vote for this cute thing. There's real dollars. Why do people vote? Why do they not vote? I think first and foremost, I will call it out. Our academic system has failed our populations in terms of civic education. We have to be very cognizant as to why people are not showing up to vote. When you have a voting populace that about only a third of it participates, that's a problem, right? Because that means you're actually not really hearing the true voice of those you're supposed to be representing. So ask yourself, are we happy enough with the ones who are showing up? And if the ones who are showing up are being manipulated, then let's also understand why, right? If you're saying we want people to come out and vote, but yet when they come out you tell them, but not like that, that's a problem. I think we need to be very candid about that. If we really are going to get people out and about and passionate and really believe that their voice counts, that their vote counts, then we really need to walk that talk as professionals, as community members, as advocates, as public servants, as preachers, speakers, whatever we may be, whatever your shoe is. I think there's room to be very intentional about ensuring that the people's voices are heard and acknowledged and honored. Because again, for me, coming from a country that, voting let me take it back. Coming from a continent, I often talk about Afro-politics. People are like, oh my God, the voting system is so, it's so problematic. I'm like, it's problematic everywhere. It's just, in my experience in the US, corruption is very finessed.
Mm-hmm.
Let's be honest. At least Afro-politics, they're very blatant in your face. They're like, hey, you thought I was stealing the votes. Maybe you should have stolen better. Whereas here, no, seriously, let's be honest. Look at, Google it. And somewhere they'll rephrase it, but it's basically, oh, you think I'm stealing votes? My dear, do a better job of stealing. Whereas here, right, it's like, yeah, I'm stealing the votes, but I'm gonna make you think that you did the thing. Or when I see you're not aligning, I will be innovative in how I tell you how to vote. And we just saw that recently with the challenge of Councilman-elect, Lamont. We saw that. And as uncomfortable as it may be to address, for those who care enough to be here in this space, I think it's important that we continue the conversation, because it's not just about him, it's about the systems and structures that uphold the status quo of corruption and misrepresentation of the people's needs. And so with that, I will wrap up with this EJ plug. As always, it's important to care about your environment. Quick plug for Article 1, Section 27, that does say that every Pennsylvanian across this Commonwealth has a right to clean air, pure water, and a safe environment. Every one of them, including those who are incarcerated. And that's a whole other sidebar we can have. But thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Winnie. Okay. Our next